I'm going to tell you about a man I met who was very, very difficult. And in fact, if I were honest, I would say he's the most obnoxious individual I've ever interacted with, but that sounds kind of hurtful, so I'm not going to say that. But at any rate, I got a call at home one day from this fellow, and he was very, very demanding, and we'll call him Jake. Remember, I always disguise the identity of stories to protect people, but let's just say that he was one of the top, or perhaps the top, college-level athlete in the United States. He was a baseball player, and all the teams were after him because they were saying he is the most powerful and dynamic baseball pitcher to come along in more than a decade. And so he introduced himself, and he said, "This is Jake so-and-so," and he was calling from Texas or wherever he lived. But he was very demanding. He said, "I'm very anxious. The scouts are coming to check out my pitching, and I'm under great pressure, and I've gotten so anxious I can't even throw the baseball. Literally cannot throw the baseball. And I've been all over the United States trying to get help. I went to this top center at Harvard, and this top center here, and this top center here, and no one has been able to help me with my anxiety. And somebody told me you have a book on anxiety when panic attacks, and so I want you to treat me right now." And I said, "Well, Jake, listen, I'm not in private practice right now. You reached my home. But I have a fantastic former student who's now practicing here in California, and maybe you could fly in and see him. I think he's one of the greatest therapists in the United States. His name is Matt May. And he says, "Well, put him on the phone right now." And I said, no, wait a minute. He doesn't live with me. I live here with my wife, and he has a clinical practice. And maybe I'll give you his phone number, and you can call him right now and set up an appointment, and you can fly in, and maybe you could do an intensive with him, like for a day or two, because he can sometimes work really fast with people. And if you're under time pressure, he's your man. And he said, "Well, what if he doesn't call me back?" And I said, "Well, I'm sure he'll call you back. He probably has an answering machine, and if he's with a patient, he'll probably call at the end of the hour and that type of thing." And I said, "Boy, am I glad to get this guy off the line." It's like talking to him is like being in a pressure cooker. And then he called me back 20 minutes later, and he says, "Why is Dr. May not calling me back?" And I said, he's probably with a patient, like I was telling you. I'm sure he'll call you back. Just give it a little time. And so then he reluctantly got off the line. Well, Matt called me the next day on a different matter. And I said, "Matt, I really apologize for referring that fellow to you. He sounds extraordinarily difficult and unpleasant." And I told him maybe he could come down and have an intensive with you. And Matt said, "Well, I don't think that's going to happen." And I said, "I'm not surprised. Did you feel like, you couldn't work with him or something like that?" And Matt says, no, that isn't what happened. And I said, "Well, what happened? Why isn't he going to come down and work with you?" Matt says, "Well, because I talked to him for 7 minutes, and then he told me he was cured." I says, "What are you talking about? That sounds like one of the most difficult people I've ever encountered. What you're saying sounds impossible. What did you tell him in 7 minutes?" And he says, "Well, Dr. Burns, I just did what you taught me to do." He was very demanding, and he says, do you think you can help me with my anxiety?" And I told him, I says, "Oh, I have no doubt about that. We got 50, 100 techniques, and it's unlikely that you would need, more than 2 or 3 of them." And then he said, "Well, how long is it going to take?" Matt said, "I don't think it would take long at all. It could happen, faster than what you think." And Jake said, well, yeah, I want you to do it. Do it right now. And then Matt said, oh, well, I don't think it would be a good idea to use those techniques and make your anxiety go away. And the fellow says, what are you talking about? You've got some techniques and you're not willing to use them? I need them. The people are going to come and watch me. My whole career is on the line. They say I'm going to be the first pick in the draft. I'm supposed to be some prodigy. And I told you I can't even throw the baseball. Man said, well, okay, sure I can make your anxiety go away, but that would be a huge mistake. And I'll tell you why. Jake, see, I'm one of your fans, Jake, and I've seen you on television. You're in shutout pitches, perfect game. It's mind-blowing, and it's just amazing to watch you. But the reason you got so good is because of your anxiety, Jake. And your perfectionism. You told me you're perfectionistic. And sure, I can make your perfectionism disappear. I can make your anxiety disappear. That's like throwing away your superpower. That you've been telling yourself ever since you were a little boy, it's not good enough. And you've been practicing and practicing. And your anxiety is the thing that motivates you and gives you the perfectionism and has allowed you to refine your skill, so the rest of us can enjoy watching you on weekends. That's why I don't think we should do anything to make your anxiety go away. He said, Jake said to me, Dr. May, are you saying my anxiety is okay? I don't have to get rid of it. It's a good thing? Matt said to him, absolutely, that's what I'm telling you. Your anxiety is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. It's the secret of your success. Don't fight it, accept it, go with it. If your anxiety disappears, you'll lose your secret sauce, your secret strength, the secret of your success. And then he told me, oh, thank you, Dr. May. That's really weird. Matt said, I asked him, well, what's so weird? And he said, well, my anxiety just disappeared completely. You just cured me, Dr. May. Thank you so much. And that was it. And it was really a neat story because not only does it show a beautiful skill that Matt has, he's a very kindly and gentle and humble fellow, but also one of the basic ideas behind the kind of therapy I've created, TEAM CBT, is to turn our view of negative emotions upside down, because you see, society teaches us you shouldn't be angry, you shouldn't be depressed. These are mental illnesses, and we've got the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders published by the American Psychiatric Association that takes all of your feelings and turns them into hundreds of mental disorders. And the problem with that, there's some value in it, but there's a lot of problems with it. And all those disorders they claim you have, like, they'll tell you you're not shy. You have something called social anxiety disorder. And then we can treat that with a pill. And suddenly, instead of having a human problem, you've got some kind of mental illness that requires drug treatment. And in my TEAM CBT, I go in the opposite direction, and I help patients see that your perfectionism, your anxiety, your depression, your guilt, your shame, your anger is really an expression of some really beautiful things about you. And the moment you see that, recovery is nearly always just a stone's throw away. So more on that later, but thank you for listening to the story today. And Jake, in spite of your obnoxiousness, I kind of love you, man, and because you gave us all a great gift and taught us something, and I wish you the very best. And he had said that he had a national championship game coming up just the next week, and we watched him, and he pitched a no-hitter, a shutout, and won the national championship and was the first man drafted into the professional baseball. And that was years ago, and he had a pretty fantastic career. But the theme here is accepting the way you feel and more than accepting it, seeing it as an expression of your core values, what's beautiful about you. Jake had given his all to his craft, and the moment he gave himself credit for that, suddenly he wasn't fighting anymore, and whoosh, his feelings disappeared. So anyway, that's it. Thank you, folks. See you again soon.